Thank you so much for listening to Urbanistica Podcast. I am Mustafa, Sherif, an urban planner, and you're more than welcome to join my big journey of exploring the making of smarter and more livable cities. Please don't forget to follow Urbanistica on the different social media platforms, and also let's connect on LinkedIn. Big thanks to Urbanistica podcast partner AFRY. AFRY is an international engineering and design company providing sustainable solutions in the fields of energy, industry, and infrastructure. Are you ready for a new episode? Let's go for it. Hello, and thank you so much for listening to Urbanistica Podcast. Today we have a new storyteller and very interesting story. I have the pleasure to welcome you, Sharee, to Urbanistica Podcast. Hello and welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
How are you doing?
I'm great. Just getting some new projects on the rise and getting organized for the summer. And how are you?
I'm good. Happy to see you again after our meeting in Helsingborg.
Yeah, for the Urban Futures Conference in Helsingborg. That was a really great time.
Yeah. So I see it's sunny and looks beautiful weather, no?
Yes, we're finally getting some sunlight and some heat in Winnipeg. We had a very deep freeze for a few weeks. It was always around -20, so it's really nice to get some sun.
Where are you now? In which, what do you call it, city or state?
I'm in a city, so
Yeah.
Winnipeg, and then we're in provinces. And so Winnipeg is in Manitoba, which is one of the coldest provinces in Canada. Just my luck.
Awesome. So we start with you. You are our storyteller. How would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners?
Sure. So I'm Sharee Hochman, and I am one of the co-founders and co-chairs of Women in Urbanism Canada. I hold a Bachelor's of Arts degree in Communications and Sociology from the University of Winnipeg. And as well, outside of Women in Urbanism Canada, I work as a Sustainable Transportation Coordinator, specifically working on active and safe routes to school here in Manitoba.
Cool. So what are you passionate about?
My passion, I think, is very similar to a lot of urbanists, is understanding how cities impact our social, mental, physical, economic, and environmental well-being, as well as working towards interventions and policies that support these in our cities.
Yeah. But how come that you became interested in this field in general?
In urbanism,
Yeah.
I think what interests me the most is that there's so many little pockets within the field, is like the best way to explain it, is just there's so many different avenues to take and to explore. And that's what I really enjoy about it, is that you can be in one little pocket, and then kind of take ideas and resources from others to amplify your own work, but also to learn more. So it kind of feels like in this field, you're constantly growing and developing in your
Yeah.
career, because there's so much to learn and there's so much to do.
That's so true. So what is the background for starting Women in Urbanism?
Well, the idea to start Women in Urbanism Canada first started in 2018 when my co-founder, Nicole Roach, she read a book, forget what it was called, but she read a certain book about sexism in cities, and it really was like a light bulb moment for her. And so she was really inspired by it. And she also found two other women in urbanism groups, one in Brussels and then the other in New Zealand. And so she just spent a lot of time researching. And then, but the idea to actually collaborate and bring this to life started in September of 2021.
Okay.
So it's been a while now.
Yeah.
And so we just started collaborating that fall, and ever since then been working together and with other folks now.
Nice. So,
to keep
so
going.
she called you and say, we have to start this.
We have to start this kind of. Actually, what was really funny is, I mean, like we all know, like Twitter is a great
Yeah.
platform for urbanists. And so she used to live in Winnipeg, but doesn't anymore. But she found that I was on Twitter as well,
Okay.
sharing my work in urbanism. I was doing a lot of publishing on just mobility.
Yeah.
And her and I connected. She reached out just saying, you know, it seems like we're into really similar things. And
Mm.
I have this project in mind that I just need help to collaborate on. So we connected on Twitter.
Yeah.
And from there started meeting weekly for about 10 months,
Like you and her or with others?
just her and I,
Okay.
for about 10 months while we both
Wow.
worked full time still and dedicated a lot of our
Yeah,
free
yeah, yeah.
time. And then just this last summer, we onboarded a national board of directors.
Nice.
So we have a lot more capacity and a
Yeah,
lot
yeah.
more support, which has
I
been
can
really
imagine.
helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like during the 10 months you were planning of like what is the mission, what should we do and like doing research or what did you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So it started like that, just
Mm.
really honing out exactly our mission, our values and principles and what we want to do. And
Mm.
then it looked like developing our website, which took some time because it was just
Yeah.
her and I doing it. And then after that, looking at a strategic plan.
Mm.
And most of that strategic plan for our first year just looked like building trust with folks and our community to listen to what we're saying and to also engage with us and building community. And it was really great because doing that and working to get that trust and making those connections helped us be featured in the media,
Yeah.
do outreach opportunities. So it was a
Mm.
really great way to start the first year.
Yeah. And also like when you plan to start something in your case what like which one was the perfect is like a NGO or a network organization a consultant what which one of these fits
Mhm.
perfect to yours?
Yeah, so we're a national nonprofit organization.
Mm, mm,
We just incorporated actually
mm.
in January. So we officially are a
Yeah.
nonprofit organization now.
Cool, cool.
Yeah, lots of background work to get there, but we did it.
So
Yeah.
tell me what is your mission?
Our mission is to transform cities to be more sustainable, equitable, and enjoyable for all. So although we're an organization that focuses on gender and women in cities, we do recognize that uh, feminism includes everyone. We don't aim to exclude everybody or anybody, sorry. We aim to see how interventions and policies, how they uplift women, but also how they serve different other equity deserving groups.
Mm, mm. But it's also like are are if you maybe you tell us about the challenges that women are facing in Canada, because I think
Absolutely.
it's because of that you started this as well,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
It's more like focus on
So,
the local situation.
mhm. I would say the biggest challenge that we see in Canada and is what inspired both Nicole and I to really develop this project is mostly mobility in cities. So in Canada, the car has really been deemed like the standard way of mobility. But women make up almost 60% of transit users here.
Okay.
And even so, that women make up a lot of our transit users. Our transit system is still based around um, very like patriarchal
Yeah.
routines, like when men
Mm.
go to work and come home kind of thing. So very much
Mm.
still morning and after work times, meaning that other errands throughout the day, especially like caregiving or yeah, like caregiving errands, like getting groceries and taking kids to school or to daycare or to appointments can be very inconvenient. Because our system for transit really just serves mostly those two times
Mm.
and can
Mm.
get very unreliable in between those two times. Um, and so women are also more likely to have a companion when they're traveling throughout cities. So it can be a bit more expensive for them to be moving into be doing their daily tasks when they're trip chaining. So when they're going from like dropping off the mail at the post office, going to the grocery store, going to an appointment. So they're bouncing around, which is like most of women's mobility patterns. And as well in Canada, there's not a lot of commuter rail or intercity buses.
Okay.
So we don't really have metros or U-Bahns, which would be really great if we did. But because of this, we had a very popular intercity bus system a while back called Greyhound Canada.
Okay.
But they had shut down services in May of 2021,
Mm.
which was a very difficult thing to happen for especially like Indigenous women in Canada, as many have been needing to flee from certain situations from their communities that were possibly harmful.
Mm.
And so when this system shut down, it made it a lot more difficult for them to seek safety. And in Canada, we have a crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. And so that's just like one part of this
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
issue. But I would say, yeah, like mobility is just the biggest barrier to women in Canada
Mm.
because it affects the rest of every other aspect of their lives.
Yeah, but like, okay, maybe I have an outdated image about like the mobility in Canada, and I thought like it's the opposite, and like, wow, it's so cool, so fancy, and so equal, and so on. So is it just because of like the timetable, or no? It's also like the other part, maybe the design of the cabins, the stations, and so on, or no? Only the the way called frequency
hmm
uh,
Yeah,
of the
I think
buses,
like
maybe.
yeah, there's certain cities here that have a lot more infrastructure for transportation than
Yeah,
Winnipeg, for example. Um, but for many cities, including Winnipeg, a lot of our city budgets go towards maintaining our roads
yeah.
because of the amount of car dependency we have. So we get a
Mm,
lot of
mm.
potholes every year, and it's like the biggest budget our city has is for roads. It's
Okay.
insane.
Mm.
And it's for roads and police. And so
uh,
everything else under it is kind of on the back burner, which is very unfortunate.
mm,
So something a few folks here, at least in Winnipeg, are trying to do is to advocate how reinvesting some of that money into transit will help um, make it more affordable
yeah,
to sustain our roads. But I think within most Canadian cities, it's just the lack of reliable, well-connected, and frequent transit
yeah.
um, outside, especially outside of downtown
Mm,
cores.
mm, mm. Are there other aspects that is as a challenge for the woman from more like urban planning, design perspective?
Aspects for transportation to help.
Not only transportation, maybe other different aspects. Like maybe in Sweden we have safety as a big
Mhm,
challenge. Not
mhm.
only also for women, but for many.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the biggest aspect for women here in Canada for urbanism is also safety.
Okay.
A lot of that, of course, being lighting, but
Mm,
also because our cities are so car dependent, we don't have as many people walking on our streets,
true. True.
meaning we don't have as many eyes on our streets.
Mm,
So, from like my experience and from many other folks' experiences I've heard, it's a lot more comfortable to be walking around knowing that there's many other folks on your
y-
street, or you have your neighbors out,
yeah.
kids going to school, it's just a lot more comfortable, and that's just something that really lacks
Yeah. Yeah.
in Canadian cities, I believe.
Mm. I think it's because of the planning is the same here as well, like the for the suburbs and uh,
Mhm.
like fewer and fewer people, and then like suddenly no people, you're alone, and so on.
Yeah, yeah,
What
totally.
what do you face as a struggle slash challenge in your daily basis out in the
Mhm.
city?
For me, My biggest struggle, I think, especially as someone who bikes year round, including in the winter,
Yeah.
is for transportation is just like the hostility from drivers.
Okay.
I've even like just experienced a lot of harassment and, catcalls. And
Mm.
my co-founder, she actually wrote a piece about it on our website. She was on a bike commuting somewhere, and she was inappropriately touched. And it's just
Wow.
something it's kind of always on like the back of my mind when I'm going places. It's like, do I have my
Mm.
lights? Do I have,
Okay.
I carry like a little alarm
Yeah.
sometimes, even if I'm traveling alone at night. And so I think that would be my biggest challenge, as well as similar to like the trip training I was talking about earlier. It's difficult to run like multiple errands in a
Mm.
day, um, for like expenses, for like bus fare, or and also just like the connection um, to go places without a vehicle.
Yeah.
Because I've now been a year car free, and it's very nice.
Okay, that's good. That's really good. But do you
Yeah.
do you think about this actively, like every time you ride your bike, or how is it? It's very. I can imagine it's like very annoying and like.
Yeah, it's very draining.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it
Like.
is.
Mm.
Yeah, especially as well, like even if I'm making plans with my friends,
Mm.
and some of my guy friends would just be like, "Oh, well, whatever, we'll just bike home after the event." And I'm like, "Okay, well, if we're biking home after the event at this time, it's gonna be
Mm.
dark. I know I have to do this many kilometers in the dark alone. What time should I leave the event where maybe it's
Mm.
more comfortable for me to get home, or changing my routes, even depending if there's enough lighting on that route from like the street lights and
Yeah.
whatnot." So it's kind of always like you're
Yeah.
always kind of reworking.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
it's extra thinking just
Hmm.
because you're maybe a woman and right.
Totally. And then for women who have children, that's a completely,
Another
right?
level.
Completely different story. Yeah.
Mm, mm, mm.
Hmm.
But is it this is when it comes to like commuting and biking. Let's say let's say the other perspective, walking or just being in the city.
Hmm.
What is like make what makes you feel not welcomed to a place, or
Mm. Yeah.
if you understand my question?
Absolutely. Same thing with like the eyes on the streets.
Mm,
That's something I notice a lot. Um, I think places that don't make me feel very welcomed, is when, well, we have very narrow sidewalks
mm.
here, at least in my city. And that's again because our streets have gone wider and our sidewalks are getting smaller. So it does make it difficult to be walking with other people.
Mm,
I know folks who are in wheelchairs. It's hardly wide enough for them to get around, as well as mothers with strollers.
mm,
Um, but as well, like even the lack of greenery, um, having shade in the summer, that's really helpful. It's a lot more encouraging to be able to go outside when you're
mm.
not, in the blazing sun,
Yeah.
just trying to get groceries. Um, but I think as well as like when there's a lack of seating, I mean, especially if you're bouncing around to be doing errands,
Mm.
it's okay to linger and rest. And for me, even if I'm just not seeing any places for people to be, but only parking spaces, it's just kind of like, come on, where can I go? You know?
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's so true. So you also have like this kind of mental map about your city, like I shouldn't go there, I shouldn't be here late, and so
Mhm.
on.
Totally.
Yeah. Does this change by time or no? It's still the same? Like,
Um, that's
let's
a
say,
great
do,
question.
do you feel, let's say we have a place X. Do
Mhm.
you feel, let's say 5 years ago, do you have the same feeling and experience toward the
Mm,
same place? How is it?
that's a great question. Actually, so I'd say it has changed, especially because so up until last winter, I was living
Mm,
in the suburbs here,
okay.
and I felt very disconnected, but I also didn't really know where to go to when I was like more in the city, I was kind of like that idea, like it's unsafe to be in an urban core.
Yeah.
Until like now that I am in the urban core of
Mm.
Winnipeg, I do feel a lot more safe than I thought I would, I think.
Mm.
But that's just also like learning about the different communities, getting more familiar with my neighborhood and my roots,
Mm.
and um, also just like taking the steps that make me feel safe. And if that's, not staying out when it's pitch black at night, if I have to walk home alone, then sometimes it's just
Yeah.
taking those
Yeah.
steps right now. Yeah,
Do you feel the difference when you like travel to another city?
totally. Yeah.
Good,
Yeah.
worst?
Um, Well, so this last summer after Urban Futures,
Mm.
the Urban Futures conference, I solo backpacked Europe for 2 months, and it was a really big game changer because I had all of this urban knowledge, but also all of my experience from Canada
Yeah.
to get to go and travel these cities and
Mm.
really see
Mm.
the difference. Um, the biggest difference I saw was just how reliable it was to get around.
Mm.
And also how there's just many different places and spaces within your cities, in Europe that don't require you to spend money to be in.
Okay.
And that's something that's very different here in Winnipeg and in many Canadian cities, is that a lot of our social events or just ways to socialize here or to experience things are mostly you have to pay for, and we don't have a lot of green spaces. It's
Mm.
decreased, oh my gosh, our public green spaces in Canada have decreased by like 77%
Wow.
between
Wow.
2001 and 2019.
That's
So
crazy.
yeah, like there's just not a lot of like third spaces or
Mm.
um yeah, just places to like meet your friends and have like a picnic or something.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So
So
you starting Women in Urbanism is not only because of the numbers and what you read on Twitter and
mhm.
what you observe, but it's something also because like you experience it and you face this challenge as well.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And not only in the physical built environment, but also within the field.
Mm.
Um, you know, we are, I do think it's changing. I see the change, but when I first started, it felt like a very male dominated space. And I felt before like I wasn't being taken very seriously, especially because I haven't formally studied urbanism. It's very much been on my own time and
Okay.
initiative to get in here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for example, one of our board members, she works on policy and advocacy. Her name's Annika. She is based in Toronto,
Mm.
and with her work, she says, she feels very similar. Like she really wants to feel more heard in her work. She's the only woman on her team, and
Ah.
so it's also like a very important initiative so we can connect with other professionals in the field who are women and who we can talk to about these experiences and also create some action plans to just
Yeah.
help each other out kind of deal.
Exactly. But is this field attractive for women in Canada to study and or
I
no?
think so. Yeah,
Okay.
I've definitely seen as much as like I've now expand my network a lot more,
Mm.
I definitely seen a huge increase of women in the field who are like, in my opinion, like remember how I was talking about those pockets of urbanism
Yeah.
earlier?
Yeah.
It feels like they're opening new pockets.
Mm.
Maybe not, it's not just them, but I see the work that they're doing to open these pockets. Like there's um I forget her name, but there's this Indigenous woman here in Winnipeg who
Okay.
I follow on Instagram, who is spearheading a lot of projects here, that uses Indigenous knowledge and planning.
Ah.
And I
Wow.
think that is so amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's just really great to see these initiatives happening.
Mm. Yeah. So tell me about like the projects that you're doing within this
Absolutely.
uh, field
Y- Yeah, so for women in
in details, huh?
urbanism, sorry?
Give us details.
Absolutely. So, for Women in Urbanism right now, our most ongoing project is to just continue creating and sharing content on feminist cities. And that looks like publishing 1 to 2 blogs every month. It's a newsletter, social media, as well as outreach opportunities, presentations, and whatnot. And then our current project right now that we're working on is developing a membership program that is to help us build revenue to support our organization and its growth, but also to be able to offer folks in the field, men and women, and everyone in between, to connect with us, help shape women in urbanism,
Mm.
as well as for us to hold membership-specific events, have membership-specific resources and whatnot. So that's something we're developing at the moment, and uh, no promises, but might be launched in June.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
All depends.
yeah.
And then a future project that we have just applied funding for is to host 3 national webinars on 3 different parks in Canada.
Wow.
First detailing their challenges
Mm.
and the barriers and whatnot, and the demographic they mostly serve, and then offering feminist interventions to help uplift these parks,
Mm.
to serve community members in a better way and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How big is the team now?
Right now, our core team is 10 folks, 10 people,
That's good.
and we also have 2 advisors who help us
Okay.
out when
Okay.
we need some extra input
But
and whatnot on
but
initiatives.
actually 10 people are many, right?
And we started out as 2.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But like how do you find themes or topics to your blog?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't I don't know how to put this, but it feels never ending.
That's
It
that's
feels
good
like
and
there's
bad and sad in the same way. Like
yeah,
it's sad because there are always like things to talk about and problem to fix. At the same time,
absolutely.
it's good like you
There's
have
always
material.
yeah, there's always something to write on. Especially like so we focus first on women, but then we also focus on other equity deserving groups. So also interventions for people in low income neighborhoods, and
Mm,
also queer folks and folks with disabilities. So there's just so much to talk about.
mm,
And we also want to be able to eventually pay people who live these experiences to write on them and share with them, because we can do our research and talk with
yeah,
others, but it's not like we've specifically lived them either, so we also want to create that space for other people to share
yeah.
it.
So do you remember like the latest 2 blogs? What was the
Mhm.
topic?
So the latest 2 blogs was uh I'm trying to remember the title, um how car culture fuels toxic masculinity.
Wow. Mm.
Yes. It was a brilliant piece written
It's
by
yeah,
Nicole.
I can imagine.
Yes, and what's really great is we actually, like, 2 weeks or so after we published it, we saw that Urban Futures developed a session at their next
Ah,
conference on
cool.
men and their relationships with cars, and I was just like, how funny, like,
Amazing.
that
Yeah,
this is
yeah,
now being
yeah,
talked about. Like, this is
yeah.
awesome. Yeah, so that was a really great piece,
Mm,
and something, being an organization that focuses on women and gender, we are always a little on our toes about receiving uh message comments, sexist comments and whatnot. And so that piece that was published, we actually got a ton of support from our
ah,
male viewers, and
cool.
Nicole was even receiving like personal messages, and I was
Wow.
just like, wow, that's
Yeah,
really great
yeah.
to see.
That's
That's
good
really
to hear.
helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
and and like when you write the blog, it's about a story that happened or in reflecting in general. What is the structure?
Yeah, so we have a few different like categories.
Mm,
So we have like a story, we have a resource, a think piece, photo essays, um, policy recommendations, and reviews. And so we have quite a lot to choose
Yeah.
from, which is really nice. Figuring out what's great for each topic is it's helpful to have it structured like that.
But more focus on Canada, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
When we were first developing, it was a bit difficult because we had most of like our research and content from Europe.
Ah,
But we are really trying to keep our
yeah,
focus, of course,
local.
on Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I feel like it's gotten a lot better. And also all the photos we share are personally taken by
Wow.
Nicole and I
Cool.
and other directors as well. So at first, because Nicole and I have spent some time in Europe, it was only photos of Europe. So we just needed content at the
Yeah,
time to
yeah,
share, but now we've really built our library for Canadian examples, which has been really helpful.
yeah. So, how is the situation for other women in other countries and so on? Is it the same as in Canada? Are you in touch with other NGOs within the same field?
So we have connected a bit with some other NGOs in other countries, not extensively yet. When they did reach out, we just had a really low capacity because it was just Nicole and
Yeah.
I. So it was kind of like, we'll get back to you soon. But thank you for reaching out.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
we would like to build those connections more. We'd also really like to build connections with the other other women in urbanism groups in Brussels and New Zealand. But in terms of what it's like for women in other countries, I think it's very different in
Mm,
different areas of the world, but with a similar overall theme that women in the past were the caregivers only.
mm, mm,
So cities were built mostly without their needs, patterns, and experiences in mind.
mm.
And so this means we've had to kind of, I don't want to say adapt necessarily, but um, do our patterns and live our experiences and try and keep up with our needs in a place that wasn't really built to support them, if
Yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
And when you, because like this is based on what I observe,
Mhm.
when you say like the word feminism, people like some people close their, they don't want to listen and you think you're listening and so on. They
Yeah.
associate it with the, like, okay, they just hate everybody and they just want to focus on women and that's. Do
Mhm.
you also face the same as well, or how is it?
Well, I think that was one of our fears, was that that would be the understanding or the feedback we'd get. And something for us that we were really being intentional about was sharing how
Mm,
uplifting women's needs and desires and experiences helps everyone. There's a really great quote from I think it's like Canada Bikes Literature, it's called. And there's a quote that says, when a country isn't bike friendly, women are the first to be left behind.
mm,
And so I think that just gives some great insight as to how, when women are included, um, these actions and interventions help include many other folks.
mm,
And something as well that we're really cautious about is white feminism, which is when which is a very traditional idea of feminism, when it's interventions and policies that support white women and all, but then puts barriers on other women.
ah,
So, for example, like an increase of police surveillance
mm,
might make some white women feel safer, but of course could make other women of different demographics feel more unsafe. So
okay.
that's an intervention we don't we don't use because we know it's harmful for other people.
Mm, mm, mm.
So that's something, and as well as how that affects Black men as well. So we really try to make sure the interventions that we're advocating for and for the policy changes we're advocating for uplift others as well.
Yeah. But do you feel like you're advocating for everyone but not the white men?
That's a great question. I think at first it was maybe a bit like that.
Mm.
Not excluding them, but just stating how cities were built with white men's needs and experiences in mind above others.
Yeah.
So first sharing that was really important for us to
Mm.
first give that historical overview. And then we started to develop work on how feminist cities are also for men. So Nicole's
Interesting.
blog on car culture and toxic masculinity, the premise of it was sharing how, you know, of course, how they intertwine with each other, but when we also cut car culture or help decrease car culture, we're also helping to decrease that like toxic masculinity traits, which do benefit men. It helps their health and their mental health and also their social connections. And so that's very important to us, as well as
Interesting.
to advocate how these interventions still help them in a beneficial way.
That's very interesting. You
Yeah,
should send me the link later so I put it in the episode.
absolutely. As well, uh, it's in its draft phase right now,
Yeah.
but I just wrote a blog on just titled "How Feminist Cities Help Men Too," and it was really interesting to dive into that topic about how, like, yes, cities at first for cars
Yeah.
were built around men's work life and their needs and whatnot to go from like the suburbs to like the downtown office 5 times a week, but also talking about how air pollution, for example, decreases male fertility, and as well how men are the patriarchy does instill this idea in men that they can't really connect with others and talk about their mental health, and
Yeah.
how public spaces could be a great place for those if we prioritize them, and whatnot. So just like really making those connections of how feminist cities will also help them as well. So
Yeah. Yeah. How do you find like all when you write? How
mhm,
do you find all the facts, the background, all this research? Like, where is there a good knowledge out there in the internet?
absolutely.
Okay,
And
cool.
I say this whenever I say this to folks who especially aren't really in the urban field, they're always surprised. But again, Twitter, it it is a bank of information,
Really?
connections. Oh yeah, like I find most of like my research for these pieces on Twitter,
Like, what do you find? Do you
because
find like papers or links to something or what?
papers, links to organizations, project updates, policy updates,
Okay.
initiatives happening in cities. So it's really interesting how a social media platform,
Yeah.
is so beneficial for our work. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's whenever I have a lot of people in my life who ask how they can become involved in urbanism, where can they learn? And I just say Twitter. I just say Twitter. I say, go to my Twitter profile, follow
And then
whoever I'm
like
following, and you're set.
is there like a specific hashtag that
Oh,
you
that's
or hashtags that you follow or you maybe write in your post?
Yeah, I think it depends on whatever the content is.
Yeah.
But if I'm, focusing on placemaking, just like hashtag
Mm.
placemaking, or mobility or active transportation, sustainable transportation,
Mm.
um, women's mobility,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's really helpful to have
And
and to use.
and when you write your blog or talk or pitch women in urbanism, do you filter your words and say like I shouldn't say feminism here or I shouldn't say this
Mhm.
here? Is it easy to just talk or no? You need always like to filter and
What?
so on. I
Uh,
hope you're not
that's a
filtering
great.
something here.
Yeah, that's true. Um, that's a great question. I think I would say yes, filtering, but more so in a way where it comes across as more digestible.
Mm.
I think it's very easy to throw a bunch of research out there, a bunch of long sentences and statistics, and people to go, what? So I think just filtering it so it's digestible. So
Mm,
a lot of that looks like just saying, here are the barriers elderly women face in cities. Here are how they affect them. Here's how we can
mm.
help them. And so that seems to be very helpful, and we get a lot of great engagement and feedback from that. And that's just kind of something we've been honing out for a while and
Yeah,
seeing that's, yeah, it's working.
yeah, interesting. And tell me more about like the comments, the messages that you're getting after
Mhm.
publishing a material. Like
Oh,
both, tell me the
yes.
good one, the bad one. I
Hmm.
want to give the listeners like how is it to be in your position and to receive all this kind of comments?
Yeah. So, like every place, we get both the positive and the negative. But for the positive, honestly, like Nicole and I never expected from the beginning to receive such support,
Okay.
which has been very motivating, and very encouraging. And so we get a lot of comments about like, oh, I've never thought about this before, or oh, this is similar to what these folks are doing or what this
Mm,
city's doing, or talking about their experiences, both men and women. And also through publishing this kind of content, we find a lot of our connections there from other organizations who are saying like, oh, this is something we're working with, and we
nice.
build those relationships.
Mm.
For negative, honestly, like, so we've launched to the public now for about a year and 3 months or so.
Okay. Mm.
Within that time frame, surprisingly, we've only had maybe 5 negative comments.
And not so, no,
So,
okay.
that's really great to
Not
see.
so, not so many. That's
Um,
good.
yeah, it's really good. It's very, encouraging, as
So
well,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
sorry?
No, but like tell us what about like the five.
Yeah. So, sometimes it just kinda seems like it's these comments, and of the times, they mostly are of white men, mostly on LinkedIn, actually. We don't really get
Okay.
these yeah,
Wow.
we don't really
Wow.
get these negative comments on any other platform besides LinkedIn.
Wow.
Um, and it seems like the folks who are commenting those negative comments, um, it seems like they just kind of made an assumption from reading the post instead of reading the blog, because they're kind of they're
Mm.
saying their opinion and whatnot, but it's like, oh, but that was actually covered in the blog. So
So
it
they
very
didn't
much
read.
seems
Yeah.
like just like jumping to conclusions, which is like, it's social media, it's gonna happen.
But
um
tell me, like, give
mhm.
us, tell us about a bad comment or message you get. Like,
Can I bring it up on my phone to read it?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Sounds good.
yeah.
um
It's yeah. No,
yes.
as I mentioned, I'm happy that you're sharing this with us because I think it's important to show. Of course, like you started this, you're doing amazing work, and life is not pinky and it's only
Mhm.
happiness and everything going good. But at the same time, in the back stage, you get a lot of headache as well. Like, and this is one of this kind of headache. Like, you get these messages.
Absolutely. And I
Yeah,
think it's also like, um because something for me when we first started Women in Urbanism was many people who weren't in the field were kind of like, I would tell them about the project that we were developing,
yeah,
and they'd kind of give me like a kind of like
hmm,
a, are you sure you want to
yeah,
do that? And
yeah.
so it's just for other folks listening, like, it's great for them, I think, to also know like developing the skills to deal with these instances, and also knowing like it probably will happen, and also knowing that like the good outbeats the bad and you got to keep going.
Right? Yeah, yeah,
um
yeah.
yeah, but the comments, it was actually on Nicole's blog, How Toxic Masculinity Drives
Ah,
Car
okay.
Culture. And so we had, again, it's a, and I don't want to like
You
uh
just tell the reality. You can just like,
yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Well, it's a white middle-aged man on LinkedIn,
Uh,
and his comment says, "I'm not sure if it is a vehicle thing. I see men engaging in aggressive bike riding all the time. And so our comment back, again, so like we've published work on aggressive riding as well. So our comment back was saying, you know, like, thanks for reaching out. Absolutely, toxic masculinity can lead to aggressive and reckless behaviors in many ways, cycling included. We felt that focusing on cars in this article was most pertinent. I can't say that word. I'm sorry. I have a speech impediment. As large vehicles can cause much more harm than bicycles. Please be in touch if you want to discuss further. So, you know, just being the bigger person, of course, but also just like
Yeah.
saying the reality. But something that was really great was on that same post.
Yeah.
We had another man on LinkedIn comment something very positive, saying,
Cool.
in certain circles, you will get a huge negative blowback from this piece, but as a serious cyclist who has logged thousands of kilometers a year of riding on roads all over Canada, by far the worst encounters I have experienced on the roads were when the driver has been using foul language, has behaved aggressively, has broken the law, and have been mostly with other men. I can't think of an incident that has been elevated with a woman as high as some of the encounters I've had with men. So
And to be honest, I share the same, like,
yeah.
this is the reality somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So seeing that was very nice, you know,
That's
having
good.
that support.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But did you get like worst comment that this or no? Or this is the level of
Not
did you
on
get like
that piece.
something
That
like
was
I will kill you or stop this or
no, thank gosh that we haven't.
you're not famous yet.
No, exactly. Once we are though,
Yeah, then you
then we're in trouble. No,
Yeah.
but it's really great to see because we do get a lot of positive feedback on every post. So I
Very
think that
good.
also kind of pushes a lot of the negative feedback away because they're
Very
like,
good.
oh,
Yeah. What
or,
how do you react when you get this kind of negative comments? You just like
sorry?
how do you react?
Well, sometimes when I see a notification of a comment, when it's not from an organization, not from a woman, um, I get a little hesitant to open it. So, but when I do, and when I see as a comment like this, it's usually first trying to, you know, I think just like rationalize what they're saying. Is like, oh, is that something we haven't considered? But most of the comments that are negative that we do get are just kind of like opinions that were made
Yeah.
in like a few seconds after seeing a post. So we don't take it too harsh. But I do share, you know, we share it. If we see it, we share it with the team
Yeah.
and we ask, how do we want to respond to this? You know, and sometimes it's like, honestly, that's not really worth responding to. It's not productive. And others, it's like, well, if we can help shed more light on what we're doing,
Yeah.
that might be a more productive thing to engage in. So yeah, you know, we just kind of collaborate to see how we want to navigate that situation.
Yeah. Good job. Really good job.
Oh, thank you.
Like, we have many listeners listening to you now. And if we focus on urban planners now, working with city development, what should we stop doing when we plan cities? It's up to you. You can like talk about planning scales, I mean, but even design. It's totally up to you. What should we stop
Yeah.
doing?
Two suggestions.
Yeah.
First, to stop planning cities around the idea that everybody moves by car. That's very big in Canada. So I'm not sure what's like in Europe. Sorry?
Still like planning more car centric.
Yeah. Yeah, which
Okay.
is very unfortunate. I see like there's change, but it's coming from a lot smaller groups, and not so much through city projects, but it's getting there. It's getting there. And then I think another thing is to from my experience, to stop planning around the idea that one project or intervention or initiative only focuses on one like benefits, if that makes sense. You know, seating in parks, of course, it's like for people to sit, but is it accessible by wheelchair and by cane if it's on gravel? Is it if, seating that's only facing a landscape, that really does cut that social interaction by like face-to-face interaction. Is seating, I want to say, wide enough or long enough to have people of different sizes sitting there, and also is it in areas that can be a little bit more secured by greenery for women who are breastfeeding, if they want to, or for teen girls who don't want to be in the like bright open spaces for people to come and up to them or to be looking at them. So like there's just many different ripple effects from one little thing. So I think trying to incorporate those ideas and those thoughts when planning.
Yeah. And what skills that should we as planners develop or learn maybe?
Well, something that I see from European organizations is there's a lot of groups who seem to be interacting with different communities to learn what their routine and what their experiences are like in cities, to be able to plan also from that perspective and from other perspectives. So that's, I think, is a great skill, is to be able to go outside of what your regular routine and experience and perspective is like in a city, to learn someone else's, to see how that can help your work. That's something I would like to see more in Canada, for sure.
Yeah.
It's like more consulting and connection with communities.
Exactly. So what is going to be the next step for women in urbanism? You mentioned about like collaboration, you're developing the model. More like things you're gonna do?
So right now it's developing our membership to be launched hopefully by the summertime, as well as developing a fee for service program. So where we can take all the knowledge we've shared in our blogs, and all of the policy recommendations we have to put into an actual service, whether that be presenting, being on panels and forums, working on projects, being, doing consulting and whatnot, and outreach opportunities. So that's something we're building as well. And like I said earlier, we want to be able to build enough revenue to pay other folks to write for us eventually, to share their perspectives and their experiences and whatnot. So that's the baseline right now, or that's like the next like 6-month goal.
Yeah,
is
exactly.
working on these items. Yeah.
And what are the challenges that you face in the team, apart from like the financial
barriers? I would say, well, before it was capacity, just Nicole and I, we just couldn't keep it wasn't sustainable to just have the two of us, and so we onboarded 8 other people, so now we're a team of 10, and so we're still having people learn about their roles and about the organization, so that's more of an ongoing thing. But I think the biggest challenge for the team, that's a great question, because we've only been working together since November, which is kind of a good amount of time,
but still very
it's
new.
all online. Yeah. I think the biggest challenge might be that honestly, I'm just talking too soon.
Maybe you don't have challenges, or maybe big challenges that you see. This is like a huge challenge.
I think the just the biggest challenge right now is just folks learning about their role. What, like, also building the confidence. You're coming into something kind of new. You don't know if you can do this or that, but building that confidence that you can take initiative, you can take charge. We also, of course, we took on more directors for the help, but we also wanted to give space for other people to help shape women in urbanism Canada. So I think right now it's just getting comfortable in roles. That's the challenge. It's happening. Yeah,
that's interesting. But you have a full-time job, or no? This is like your full-time.
This is no, I do have a full-time job. Most of us do.
Wow.
So that's also another challenge. It's just balancing, working full time and balancing this project
Mm.
that sometimes feels full time as well. So, especially for Nicole and I at the start, we were spending at least 12 hours a week on
Wow.
developing women in urbanism
Yeah,
on top
yeah.
of working like a 40-hour work week. So,
Wow.
yes.
Good job. Really. No, no, that's amazing. Like, wow. Wow.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people realize that when I tell them,
Yeah.
they think it is my full-time job. I'm like, ah,
Exactly.
not exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Mm. So like in your full-time job, you work on mobility,
Mhm.
right?
So I am a sustainable transportation program coordinator for an organization in Winnipeg called Green Action Center.
Mm.
And my focus is on active and safe routes to school. So that looks like programming and events and activities and resources for schools, administrators, parents, and kids on how they can get to school in a more sustainable way, as well as providing policy recommendations to the city,
Mm.
how to help build more sustainable transportation in general, but also how to help children's mobility and whatnot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a really interesting job. I've been able to partake in a lot of like city held stakeholder events, again, policy recommendations, connecting with organizations across the country.
Yeah.
And something we're working on right now is a project with a middle school here, on how pretty much just asking them to build out on a map with like Lego or other like handheld items, on what interventions could be done to help them feel safer
Mm.
biking or walking
Yeah.
or rolling to
Yeah.
school. So it's really interesting.
Cool.
It's really
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. Do you
Mhm.
do you also have this problem in Canada or in your city that parents drive their children by cars and they cause like all this unsafety and traffic? You know, it's like it's caused by parents who always complain that schools are like unsafe and there's so much traffic there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a
Same.
huge issue. I think a lot of it has to come with parents not feeling like it's safe enough for their kids
Mm.
to walk or to bike or roll to school. But a lot of that, so they drive, but it's the driving that doesn't make it very safe, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah. There was on Twitter, there was just a video of school drop off in Vancouver here in
Mm.
Canada. And so I believe it was Vancouver. It was school drop off, and there was a like a patroller, like someone helping to control the
Yeah.
cars for
Yeah.
drop off. And one car was very upset that they were waiting in line and was verbally harassing the patroller and sped through the school zone. So it's
Wow.
just really interesting how you want your kids to be safe at school, and
Yeah.
some parents think it's scary or unsafe for kids to get to school because of cars, but then, you have this behavior from parents.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's because it was one day I had this community engagement dialogue with the parents and so on, and
Mhm,
then they mentioned there was like they mentioned so much about like it's so unsafe, unpleasant, it's so bad, so many cars next to the school, you know,
mhm.
and we as urban planners and designers should solve this, and like all of them were driving their kids to school, and I was like, but like the cars actually are like it's you, it's about you, no?
Exactly.
Maybe we
Yeah.
all together should do something, you know? So it's a lot
Exactly.
to do with
Yeah.
the parents as well.
The parents, the city, and it's just it feels
Yeah,
like a
it's
circle sometimes. But yeah, no, I totally agree with you.
yeah. I work a lot with the child-friendly cities, and we
Yes,
say a city for kids, it's a city for all. Can we
absolutely.
also say a city for women is a city for all?
Mhm. Absolutely. Like when we were in Helsingborg and I was on that tour with you,
Mm.
at the park in Helsingborg, with the masks, trying to see the park at eye level of a child. Um, just throughout that, like, uh, that first, I love that activity
Thank
and
you.
have it in my pocket for certain activities here. But as well, like that's of course helped me understand, the interactions between children and women when they're out in public. You
Mm,
know, everything is adult sized, and so something might be easier for the parent to navigate, but how does it affect a child?
mm.
And so ways that we can increase that interaction, especially like risky play and whatnot. So yeah, that was a
Yeah,
very great
yeah.
activity.
Thanks for. I think there where we connected, right?
Absolutely, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
where it was.
You made also good pictures from the trip, from the
Yeah,
study trip.
yeah, it was great.
Yeah. And back to you. What makes you sad in your city?
I've probably said it a few times already throughout
Yeah,
our
like
time
the yes,
talking,
the
but just how car dependent
mm,
Winnipeg is. It's
yeah.
very sad. There's just so many, again, mental, physical, environmental, financial benefits to uh sustainable transportation, active transportation in cities. And I see people complaining about the effects of it.
Mm,
And people in my circle too, like my parents and my friends and whatnot. But it's like the acceptance that it's building our cities around cars is really hard to swallow, it seems like sometimes. And it's very difficult because we research this,
yeah.
we work in it, and then for folks to be like, oh no, that's not it, or I could never get out my car, it's sometimes like uh,
Mm,
sometimes insulting, but also just like I want you to experience how it could be better, and I want,
yeah.
so I think that's just what makes me
Mm,
sad, is just
mm.
seeing that focus on cars and just like missed opportunities to better our
Yeah.
city because
True,
of it.
true. And what makes you happy?
Um, what makes me happy about Winnipeg is our recent initiative within the last 3 years, I would say, or 4 years, to make winter a more people-centered place.
Mm,
It's like, I mean, especially with climate change, it's been very different, our winters lately. Um, but our winters can get up to like -40 with the windshields. Like it can be very
wow.
bad.
Wow. Wow.
But the last few years, I want to say especially because of COVID, there's
Mm,
been a big initiative in making winter a place for people to connect and socialize and to be doing all these different things. And a lot of them, especially this last winter, haven't involved cars, sorry,
oh,
which has
wow.
been great.
Mm,
We have like the main river in our city,
mm.
of course, freezes every winter. And there's a big trail that people can skate and walk and ski and snowshoe on. And you see women and like
Nice.
people in strollers and on bikes. And there's different art installations and lights. And for the last few years, there's been a tent that gets rent out to like for events and a lot of like restaurants and whatnot. So it's like you're like eating on the river. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
So it's really great to see more people using it and
Yeah.
also it being more spread out throughout the city.
Mm-mm. Cool, cool. So no, I'm very very happy to talk to you, and I'm very inspired, and like now I will actively follow your blog as well, and
Oh,
I hope
thank
you
you.
send me all the different links to what you mentioned today, so we put it in the episode description. So this was
Absolutely.
the part about how do we make cities for people, cities for women. And as you know, in this podcast, it's also about the people behind the projects and NGOs. So it's more going to be about you in this section of the episode.
Mhm.
So with all what you do, a lot of challenges, good vibes, sometimes big challenges, negative comments. So what gives you energy to do what you do?
Um, I think at first what gave me energy and motivation to do what I do was seeing that there was a gap and someone needed to do it. Um, so that's, I think, is what first really gave me a lot of energy. But I would say now what gives me energy a year and a half into this project, especially, is seeing that there's still so much to explore. Um,
Mm,
like my focus is on transportation and mobility and has been for the last few years, but I'm really interested in greening cities and placemaking and
mm.
even urban farming. So, I think that's what motivates me is just like to keep learning
Yeah. E-
and
Exploring
making
the different pockets. What do you say?
yes.
Boxes?
Pockets, yeah.
Pockets.
Exploring the different pockets. There's just so many, and there's a lot of free resources and free ways to
Yeah, yeah.
explore them. So I think that's
Yeah,
just what keeps motivating me.
that's very interesting. And about like the pockets, the thing is that internet is a gift, you know. You
Hmm.
can find so much, and
Absolutely.
there's so much content as well to
Yes,
learn, right?
so much. And also a lot of, especially a lot of nonprofit organizations,
Yeah.
they want people to learn these things and they
Mm.
have the resources to give them. So they do host a lot of free events as well
Yeah.
to help share it. Like I'm going to one tonight on greening our city. So
Wow.
it's just like really
Amazing.
nice and it's free.
Yeah, it's a good knowledge actually to it's good to listen to learn. And also I think after or maybe during and then after COVID, there was a lot of free content.
Mhm.
Like people just
Absolutely.
doing seminars, webinars, podcasting, and so on. I think it's
Mhm.
good.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. I feel like it's a lot more accessible.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So if you choose to be something else than being a woman,
Mhm.
so what will you choose to be and why?
Like as like a non-human kind of thing
Yeah,
or
let's say non-human. Yes.
um what would I be? I always find this question is hard because I feel like I kind of have the skills sometimes to like adapt to who I want to be, but um but I guess like a way to like explain how I feel sometimes and I feel like a lot of people use this example. So this probably doesn't sound very original, but
Which
definitely like a
is
pocket knife. Like I definitely feel like I have these different tools that are just like in my back pocket and I can take them out when I need them and whatnot. So yeah. But I hope that answers your question.
yeah,
I
it's
did a lot of sorry?
no, but usually people answer, "I want to be a bird to fly. I want to be a
Oh.
tree."
Oops.
So
Oh
you
well. Oops.
want to be a pocket knife?
I just feel like that's like most that like explains me the most. Maybe that's not what I
Mm.
want to be, but that's just what explains me. If I did want to be something,
Yeah.
uh honestly, this sounds boring, but I think just a tree. Like just leave me in the forest, let me hang
Don't.
out. Like I used to do a lot of like camping and canoe trips growing up, and
Okay,
so that
cool.
really shaped who I was. So
Yeah, yeah,
I would love to just hang out again in the forest. So
yeah.
I could be a tree.
But tell us more about like your childhood, where you grew up, how was
Mm.
it, and more about you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was like born and raised in Winnipeg. Again, I lived in the suburbs. But and this is something like that really helped me with urbanism
Hmm.
was when for like almost 10 years, I actually was a synchronized swimmer and swam nationally. And
Wow.
that was a huge chunk of my life,
Mm.
working as a team and being at the pool 6 days a week for like 24 hours a week.
Wow.
Um, lot of dedication, but
Yeah.
the thing was something that was really prominent in my childhood because of that was it was almost an hour drive each way from my
Oh,
house to the pool.
that's crazy.
You know, doing that 6 times a week was draining, and especially for my parents, it took
Mm.
them away
Yeah.
from so many
Mm,
things.
mm, mm.
And I and like I tell them now in my career, you know, like I want like the reason why I also want cities to have sustainable transportation options,
Yeah.
you know, it gives kids more
Mm.
independence, and
Yeah.
also how that relieves caregiving for parents. So I'm like, this is how I'm paying you back for all of those years in a car driving me to swimming. But yeah, so I swam during the year,
Mm.
and then every summer I would go on a canoe trip. So I was out camping with very little uh resources, and no internet, no anything really.
Wow.
And the longest one I did was 4 weeks.
Wow.
And it was really amazing, just
Yeah.
being in
Yeah.
like the backcountry of Canada. It was really life-changing, and I would love
Yeah.
to do it again.
Yeah. And like when you start to study, how come that? What did your family say when you start study this specific kind of program and so on? Did you get
Hmm.
like inspiration from someone or no?
Um, so Well, when I first started studying urbanism, I think my parents were kind of like, "What are you talking about?" Like they were just like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And I'd be like, "No, art," like I would be telling them all the issues about our city, and they'd be
Yeah.
like, "I don't know, whatever, you know, pass the plate, whatever." But then they started to really understand, and
Mm,
for me, like I started biking, which is what really helped
mm,
me get into urbanism. It was first just for recreation, and then I was like, oh my God, it's a whole world out there
mm.
about it. And then my mom started biking with me. And
Cool.
so we bike with each other almost every week, bike or walk in the
Yeah.
city.
Yeah.
And now she talks about its benefits, and she's telling people at work, and she's telling her friends, and I
Yeah.
feel like a sense of pride. But how I got into it though,
Mm, mm,
um, so like I was working in communications.
mm,
And so part of that was also finding a lot of like volunteer opportunities to expand my experience in
mm,
communications and whatnot. And so I actually was a volunteer for the Urban Economy Forum, which is based in Toronto,
mm.
here in Canada, to do reporting on their huge annual forum. And I'm supposed to only be taking their, you know, taking notes and whatnot to write on later.
Yeah.
But I remember there's one panel of speakers, and they were talking about rebuilding the city after COVID,
Okay.
and, you know, talking about like dense communities
Mm.
and whatnot. And it just like a light bulb moment. I was just like, wow, this is really interesting. What is this? And then I just started to fall into it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's where it started.
This was interesting. But
Yeah.
I also see behind you like you have a bike on the wall.
Yes,
Or more than
I have
what do
two
you have?
bikes on the wall. Two bikes on the wall, a bike frame on the other wall that is you can't tell, but it's cracked. So
Like a bike
uh
workshop.
uh,
Why you have them there?
well, decor, but also it's, you know, we don't, so my roommate was a pro cyclist and like
Hmm.
raced for
Okay.
cycling, and then
Yeah.
I'm the sustainable transportation
Oh, yeah.
you
Yeah. Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
professional. So sometimes, you know, we talk about it and obviously have different perspectives of cycling and biking in cities and whatnot. So but these are our bikes that we don't use in the winter.
Ah.
So they don't get all worn out
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
whatnot. But I have my winter bike in the basement, and I'm actually going this weekend to look at parts to build up a commuter bike, a new commuter bike, but from used parts. Actually,
Yeah.
there's an organization here in Winnipeg that uh, imports used Dutch bikes from the Netherlands to bring to
Mm.
Winnipeg to try and get more folks on them.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah.
like it's a dream for you to bike in Copenhagen or Amsterdam or Rotterdam, right?
Yeah, I mean, I did it, so that
You
was
did it?
really
Yeah,
fun.
you did it.
But
Wow.
yeah,
Where?
this
In which city?
summer. Sorry?
In which city?
I biked around in almost every city that I was in. So that
Mm.
was Berlin, Hamburg, Malmo. I didn't bike in Helsingborg, couldn't find a bike, but I didn't felt like I really needed it.
Yeah, yeah.
Everything was pretty close.
Mhm.
And then of course Copenhagen and Amsterdam and Utrecht. Utrecht was of course amazing. Every urbanist's dream to be there. Um, and then I went to Lyon in France, but I didn't bike there. But I
Mm.
did bike in Torino in Italy, and that was
Oh,
scary.
wow.
That was really scary.
A lot of cars?
Yeah. Sorry?
A lot of cars?
A lot of cars. Actually, when I
Mm.
got to Torino, it reminded
Yeah.
me a lot of Winnipeg.
Home
Just
sweet
like
home.
home sweet home. Exactly. I was like, I'm not even in Europe
Yeah.
anymore. Just like lots of cars, lots of parking lots. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So let's say 100 years from now, what would you love people to say about you when they
Mm,
Google your name when they read your name?
right. I think what I would want people to say about me is I think just acknowledging how impactful and beneficial it is when you connect with communities and when you put in that effort and take that initiative to kind of throw yourself into stuff.
Mm.
I I actually had this conversation a bit with a friend not too long ago. Like we were like Googling each other's names and I was like, oh, Google
Ah,
mine. A lot will
yeah.
actually come up like in a non like prideful way. I don't know. It's just like, no, like a lot of my work actually does come
Yeah.
up.
Wow.
And so they were like, oh, like I didn't realize, you were
Famous.
connecting with all these people. And I was like, yeah, like that's how I built my career was just volunteering and
Yeah.
connecting with folks. And I
Mm.
mean, I found it's given me a really great perspective in
Yeah.
my work.
Mm.
And yeah, I would want people to say how cool and I should do the same.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
So talking about career, like now two questions. Name one thing you did in your career and you're very proud of, and then you
Mhm.
name one thing you did in your career and you regret.
Right. Okay. So I think something I'm very proud of, kind of going off of like what I was just saying, was I was able to get into this field and to make impacts without formally studying urban
Mm.
planning or urban design or architecture. I was very intimidated at first, entering this field a bit more seriously,
Yeah.
that I wasn't going to be taken seriously. So because of that, I even applied for a master's of urban studies
Mm.
in Brussels, and I got in, but
Wow.
I just like wasn't ready to dedicate myself to studying
Mm.
yet.
Mm.
And so I declined, but still want to take action to build those skills and connections in the field. And so I'm really proud that I'm at where I'm at
Yeah.
um, because I got out of my comfort zone and like I would go and volunteer alone all the time
Mm. Mm.
and
Mm.
make these connections. And I'm really proud for dedicating myself to that and making space in my life for that while still being in a different field, working full
E-
time.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And then I think the thing I regret the most in my career might not be necessarily career based, but when I was in university, I
Mm.
really, really rushed my degree. I was taking a full course load while working part-time
Mm. High
and
five.
yeah.
Tell me. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it was just like a lot of work. And when I really wanted to travel, that was my main motivator.
Mm.
So I was like,
Yeah.
hey, if I get my degree as soon as possible, I can go and travel. But
Uh,
when I got out of university, COVID hit. And
no
yeah,
travels.
yeah. But I was also kind of
Oh.
like, I didn't need to go that fast. I
Mm.
could have explored more. I could have,
Yeah.
like who knows? But I don't regret anything else. I think it's just I could have used more rest back then. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
not rushing would have
Mm.
probably been a bit more beneficial.
Yeah. I understand and feel what you're talking about because I did the same mistake.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's hard. There's a lot of
it's
pressure.
hard. Yeah. And I now when I'm telling all the students that don't do that.
Mhm.
Like really enjoy your time, take it, like normally, no, don't rush anything.
Mhm.
you will have plenty of time to build a career and all this
Yeah.
stuff. Everything will come, but just like now, enjoy the moment and
Mhm.
just be normal, don't rush
I completely
anything. Yeah,
agree. I
it's
completely agree.
yeah.
Yeah. 2 thumbs up.
So if
Yeah.
you choose to be something else, now is talking about profession, like not working with urban planning or mobility or communication, what
Mhm.
would you like to be or to
Mm.
try as a
Mhm.
profession?
That's interesting. If this is too still close to the profession, I choose something else, but I've been getting really interested, like I mentioned earlier, in urban farming.
Urban farming.
I mean, when I was in Europe, I volunteered at Ostergro in Copenhagen,
Mhm.
which is like the city's first rooftop urban farm. Um, and I just wanted something to do. And so I just did it. And then I was like, wow, like it was so interesting to see, first to learn about like the benefits of
Yeah.
greenery and pollinators, in the city, but then as well like the benefits it has as a community.
Mm.
um it's a great place for connection. It's also a great place for education. And a close friend of mine, she works in occupational therapy,
Mhm.
and so she talks about how like urban farms and gardening is really great for older communities,
Interesting.
because of course it's great for like their physical mobility to be moving like
Mm.
that, but at a slower pace kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's not too hard on them, but it's also, it gets them out more. It helps them build
Mm.
friendships and a network and and whatnot. So it's just really interesting to see the different connections it has
Yeah,
for
yeah.
that. So
I think it's a
that
lot to
would
do
be,
also
yeah.
with the social aspect in
Mhm,
urban, like more the social rather than the producing food and eating and supplying. I think
mhm.
so, right?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's kind of something I'm like slowly working towards as like a hobby, is learning about gardening.
Yeah.
And I actually have like I'm excited because I have like a community plot for the summer to work in.
Nice.
So just like giving it a go, giving it a try,
Yeah,
seeing what
yeah,
comes of it.
yeah. No, I see, because
Yeah.
now you're attending this seminar about like green cities and like
Hmm.
slowly you're getting there.
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah. All
how
about the
how
learning.
Yeah. So how is your daily routine? What do you do? When do you wake up? If you take us with you.
Right. It sometimes changes, but it's usually around, I get up probably like 7 in the morning or so. And after getting ready, of course, for the day, I actually spend like an hour or so on women in urbanism, just like
In the
checking
morning?
email. Sorry?
In the morning?
Yeah, in the
Yeah.
morning before I go to work. Checking emails, scheduling anything that needs to go out, any last minute stuff, or smaller tasks.
Yeah.
And then I head to the office. I
You
usually
bike?
bus or bike.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm.
I've been busing a lot more lately because in the fall of this year I got a shoulder injury from biking.
Mm.
And then I got hit by a car while
Oh
biking.
no.
So I'm okay. My bike is okay.
Mm.
But of course it's kind of like, maybe I should just take the bus for a bit. So I take the bus mostly to the office,
Yeah.
spend the day there, meetings and collaboration and working on projects. And then usually when I come back home, I'm either going back to work for Women in Urbanism,
Mm.
or like my closest friend group, we are all urbanists and we all bike and we all live quite close to each other. So usually we have plans, we get on our bikes or we are walking
Ah.
to different events or just to hang out, and we talk about this stuff a lot.
Okay. Cool. Cool.
So yeah, so helping each other on like each other's personal projects. Two of
Mm.
my friends, they created like a for the summer, it's called bike jelly. And it's like a I don't know, do you know like what a bike jam is?
No.
No, it's pretty much like an organized community bike ride throughout the city. Usually when there's like in places where there's not bike infrastructure,
Okay.
and you play music and you're taking up space.
Cool.
So
So
they
like a
organized
traffic
that.
jam, but now it's bike jam. Is it this? Ah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, exactly. So helping them
Yeah.
sometimes, or just attending bike events with them and stuff. So, or yeah, or like going to events like I'm going to tonight, and whatnot. So that's usually my day.
And what time you go to bed?
Uh,
Late.
no, actually, that's why I laughed. I'm in bed usually by like 9.
Really?
Sometimes yeah, it
Wow.
depends, but I'm a
It's
tired
good.
gal. I got a
No,
lot
but
on the
it's
goes.
good. It's good to sleep early. I don't know how people
Exactly.
do that.
It's
Sleeping so early.
hard. Lots of time management, but I
That's
mean,
very good for your health
thank
and
you.
the brain.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I feel the benefits of it.
Yeah.
I'm in bed usually,
No,
yeah, by
it's
9 on my phone for a bit, and then I go to
you
bed.
know, like when we were students, we tried like stay up and don't sleep, and
Hmm.
maximize our waking hours and so on. And like it's scientifically, it's not good. And
Exactly.
usually we have this trend. I'm young, so I stay late and I work
Hmm.
and I watch movies and so on. So when I see like a young person sleeping early, I become so happy. So good, really
Thank
good
you.
model.
Thank you. My friends make fun of me for it, but thank
I
you.
know, I know, no, no,
I'll tell them.
I know. It's like sometimes it's the same same case for me. Like if I sleep,
Yeah.
I don't sleep early, and this is my problem. I don't know because I usually when I was student, I programmed myself to
Hmm.
not sleep early.
Mm,
So
hmm.
I still have it in my body, and I don't know how to reprogram. So I sleep, I
Right.
don't know, like late. But we usually also make fun of people sleeping early,
Yes.
and it's
Even my parents are
and
like,
it's not good.
"You're getting so old."
Yeah. We say in my
Yeah.
culture we say chicken.
Ah.
It means like it because chicken like sleep early.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and we when a person we say, are you a chicken or what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So how do you, because you work and you have your hobby also, maybe the second work is like women in urbanism. How do you find that work life balance? Do you have it or no?
Uh, it's taken me a long time to find it. Last year I did not have a work-life balance,
Mm,
and I was very burnt out.
mm.
And that's like the main reason why I declined the master's offer, because I was like,
Ah,
I can't imagine studying right now. I'm so
it's
tired.
too much. Yeah, yeah.
So because of that, I
Mm.
knew it was time to, find new ways to handle it. And um, that's also when I went to Europe for a few months. I was like, oh well, I'll go travel for a bit. Um, but when I came back, I really honestly, like, what I said to myself literally on the plane coming back to Canada was, I do not want my life to be like how it was before I left
Ah,
to Europe. It
very
was just
good.
too much for me. I
Mm,
was
mm.
I was working like 14 hours a day,
Wow.
um, to manage everything, and I was just like,
Wow.
that's not healthy.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Mm.
yeah, so now I think the balance is, I mean, first, of course, is like having a great calendar. So this is mine. It's very tough to see,
Nice.
but just having a calendar with me all the time is very helpful.
Yeah.
But it's also learning how to say no, you know?
Mm.
That's something that I've been really working on, is how to say no, but also how to build boundaries for myself and for
Okay.
others. And that's when it's like, actually, my plate is really full. I don't have the capacity to do this thing or to do it
Mm.
well. So, can I have some help on it, or can it be,
Ah,
pushed back a bit? Yeah. And sometimes, people don't like hearing no, but being able to communicate it in a way where it's like, it's just, I can't handle it at the moment,
mm.
uh, I think helps a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. It's very good that you're telling this, like how to say no.
Thank you. It's something I've been really working on. It's something I could
Mm.
not do before at all.
But how do we? Can you give us some advice,
Mhm,
especially for us people who wants to be engaged and wants to do something here, something there, volunteering here?
mhm.
How can we say no? Like, what should we really think about?
Mm. I think the biggest thing would be I think just seeing if saying yes to this thing is going to bring value to you and to your mental well-being.
Mm.
For me, sometimes if I see a like a professional development opportunity coming my way, but I know I don't really have the capacity to do it,
Uh,
I know it's not going to be as valuable to me because I'm not going
mm.
to actually have the time to focus on it, and it's just going to make me feel even more stressed.
Yeah.
So, just being able to accept that that's just not the right moment for it.
Mm.
Or if I can't shift things on my plate to accommodate things, it's just better to say no.
Mm.
Also something that's really helped me with a work-life balance has just been thinking that or saying to myself, like, I don't have to do it all. That's how I felt before.
Yeah.
Was like, well, if no one else is going to do it, I got to do it. But now I'm seeing, a lot more people taking initiative on things and different projects. And sometimes, it's better to just give space to other people to do it
Mm.
and you see what they do and, you appreciate their work instead of feeling like you have to do it all.
True. True.
Yeah,
So can you tell yourself that you have the work-life balance now, or no? Still,
absolutely I do.
you do that.
Yeah. I absolutely have a work-life balance and right now it's just about maintaining it.
Mm.
It's sometimes easy to think, oh, well, I worked all day, I should go out now, or I should,
Yeah.
but also figuring out my priorities for the week is
Mm.
really helpful.
Yeah.
If I need to get something for women in urbanism out or done, I gotta dedicate a
Yeah.
day to that or something, like or an
Mm.
evening, to get it done. And if I do, and if that's my priority, and if it's done, then I can go and enjoy
Free.
my
Yeah.
personal time.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so what is your like next section is going to be about like messages to listeners and so on. But before we go there, I know like many of us wants to start something like how you did, like women in urbanism, maybe children in urbanism, or like we
Hmm.
have so much passion and we want to put it in something concrete. So what
Absolutely.
should we think about when we start this? It's not gonna be our first or main job. This is gonna be like a
Hmm.
side project. What
Hmm.
should we keep in mind when we start this?
It's a really great question. Um, I think identifying your goal with it and your plan with it.
Mm.
For me, Nicole and I, when we were starting to collaborate, we had, of course, still different goals because we're different people, right? But like hers
Yeah.
was to develop this resource because she sees the gap
Mm.
in Canada. And I was also inspired by that. But I also wanted to develop women in urbanism Canada because I felt like this is where I can kind of have control of where I'm starting in this field, you know? This is where I can build those skills. This is where I can make those connections. This is where I can just use all this information I have in my
Mm.
head and put it somewhere.
Yeah.
So it was a really great way for me to start because again when we started women in
Mm.
urbanism I was working in communications, so I didn't have any other time in my day
Yeah.
to have my little like urbanist time. So this is where I could do that, right?
Yeah.
So understanding your goal for it,
Yeah.
and then also understanding a plan for it, like whether I think the best thing was like kind of developing a small strategic plan at the
Mm.
beginning.
Mm.
We didn't have high expectations for ourselves. We just knew we wanted, within the first year of development, we wanted to develop a website. We wanted to publish, I think it was 5 blogs, and we wanted to do one outreach opportunity.
Cool.
And we like surpassed those so fast. And so, like being realistic, which was really
Yeah.
helpful, but
Yeah.
also like yeah, setting those like that little strategic
Yeah.
plan was
Yeah.
really helpful.
Should we think a lot about like how do we make money and so on, or what do you
Hmm.
think?
I think so. I think
Mm.
for us, we talked a lot about it, but
Mm.
we knew we needed to build the internal infrastructure of the organization before we could actually start making the money, of course, right?
Yeah.
And so I think if you first identify how you want to make money, you know, to of course help that is then see what steps you need to take to get there. So for us to actually have an income, we needed to incorporate as a nonprofit. But to incorporate as a nonprofit, we needed a board of directors. And we also need bylaws and a bank account and board of directors insurance. And, you know, so it's like, it's a lot. So understanding those steps, being patient, you'll get there. You know, like our goal in our first year of development wasn't to make money, but we made like $700 in our first
That's
year
cool.
without
Cool.
like
Having it as a
actively
goal.
trying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
So
Cool. Good job.
thank you.
So now we are in the final section of this episode, and there are 3 questions. So the first one is about you give a message to yourself. So imagine you have a mirror in front of you, and actually you see yourself on the camera. So
Yeah.
so talk to yourself.
think
So talk to yourself. Give yourself a message.
the message I would have for myself, for my future self, would be to keep exploring the different ways that cities serve us and how you can be involved in them, and of course, how they benefit you as well. Explore the pockets. There's always something to, you know, to learn. You know, connect with those different communities that are within those pockets. And also take your time while you're doing it, you know?
Yeah.
That would be my message for myself.
Yeah. Cool. And 3 takeaway messages to our listeners.
I think the first one would be like a similar message for myself is to seek ways to experience cities in different ways to help broaden your perspective and understanding and planning. I think that's like a great way to you're building your skill set and your connections and just your perspective. And then as well, becoming involved in a community that is important to you on a voluntary basis or as part of a social group or like as an event, you know, if you know your culture is very important to you, how can you become more involved in it if you wanted to? Or if serving a at-risk community is really important to you, how can you become involved in helping that community? And doing it on a voluntary basis where this is on your own time or as part of a social thing, I think has its many different benefits than it has versus like your work. It's a lot more personal. And I think that's really helpful, and that's what's gotten me here today. So that's what I really appreciate. And then I think the last message or the last takeaway I would have for listeners would be to ask for support when you need it. I learned that the hard way, burning myself out, you know, running away to Europe. So ask for support when you need it, you know. It's okay. People are here to lean on, especially in this field, from my experience.
True.
You know? So that's very important to me.
Yeah. And thank you so much. Really, really, really good takeaway messages.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and the last question in this episode is going to be you asking it to us. So, what is your question to your listeners?
That's a great question. I think the main one I would have is my main question for listeners would be, what is a community you would like to be more involved in or to see more support in your city, and why?
Cool.
I think that would be that.
Good question. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation. I really love what you're doing. So keep doing what you do, and good job. You're inspiring us. And
Thank you.
I hope we continue our conversation and talk in the coming episode about interesting topics as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed chatting with you and exploring urbanism in new ways.
We keep in touch.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you.